thanking you, first of all, for being here and for your service. I do, however, want to reassert the request that not only I made, but also that Senator Mikulski made and Senator Cardin made. They, by the way, for everyone's information, the Senate is still in session, or I'm sure they would be here as well to express their concerns. But we have requested that we hold additional hearings in a letter dated May 19th. The argument obviously being that this affects a wide area, the entire Eastern Shore, and having one meeting, to be quite candid, I was lucky to be able to get here. The senators could not. 6 o'clock, one time, for an issue that affects the entire Eastern Shore. It's simply not reasonable to expect from Ocean City or Kratovil, as an example, to make it here, Smith Island and elsewhere, to get here in time to express their views. I'm asking again that you consider holding 3 additional meetings, one in Chestertown, one in Salisbury, and one in Ocean City. Now listen, we all understand that we're in a difficult economic time. All of us understand that. However, we are debating in Washington every day the question of how do we save jobs, or better yet, create jobs. We've had the stimulus, we've had other measures that we're debating related to small businesses in terms of saving or creating jobs, debates on whether or not there needs to be additional state aid to prevent layoffs of teachers or law enforcement. What sense does it make at the same time, on one hand, the federal government is taking measures to save and create jobs, and on the other hand, doing something that obviously is going to lead to unemployment? It makes sense. In terms of loss of service, I find it difficult to believe, with all due respect, I find it difficult to believe that service cannot be affected by routing a letter, let's say, from Ocean City to Chestertown through Baltimore. Given the nature of the shore, given the nature of the Bay Bridge, given the situations we've had in terms of weather, I find it very difficult to believe, one, that that is not going to affect service, and two, I find it hard to believe that the overall long term, that's going to save us dollars. And I'm asking again that you consider that, and I'm looking for some information, factual, specific information. Looking at information that's been given, I don't see any information or evidence that consideration has been given to a number of factors. Number one is this. We are a rural area. Obviously, I think comparing the use of mail service on the Eastern Shore, I suspect would be very different than comparing that to a metropolitan area where the access to the internet is substantially different. I believe, and I believe the study would demonstrate, that the use on the shore would be significantly higher, number one. Two, I also suspect that's particularly true as it relates to the elderly. And doing something that's ultimately going to affect their service, I think, is unfair, and I think that's a factor we need to consider. Is in looking at long term, how do we deal with the economic crisis and so forth? We have to look long term and be smart, not take measures in the short term that perhaps, arguably, I gather in your view, save dollars, but in the long term do not. And I have seen very little in terms of evidence related to the expectation of growth on the Eastern Shore, despite the fact that most of the people in this room, I'm sure, would prefer to keep growth down. The bottom line is we are going to have growth on the Eastern Shore, and long term, what is the impact of that going to be? It doesn't make a lot of sense to shut down a distribution center now, and 4 years later, 5 years later, 10 years later, have to come back and start all over. appropriately. I want you to know, though, that I do think there are a lot of questions here that aren't answered. And one of the questions I have is, it's one thing to go out and do these meetings and listen. And again, I appreciate your willingness to do that. On the other hand, the ultimate question is, what do you do with the information and the questions and the points that are raised? Take it on a shelf that are doing today. The question is, what is the procedure? What is the process for dealing with those issues and questions that are raised and moving us forward? With that, I will yield back, and thank you very much for listening.